Alright, so this is part 3. Coincidentally, it is also the third video I'm taking, which are now, as I figured out, 10 minutes. I didn't know my laptop as well as I thought I did. And this section is about my challenge, the ways God challenged me, and my challenges for you. So just to catch you up, if you're starting off with this, like, if you're doing part 3 of this now, just part 3 alone. Before I talked about what CUP was, like I was living in Austin community, talking about racial reconciliation, and then kind of some things I learned about what it means to be white, what it means to be part of a multi-ethnic community, what it means to be privileged, and how God calls us to fight against disadvantage. We kind of looked at North Charleston as a disadvantaged community, and we looked at Revelation 7:9. I guess I probably could have just said that to you instead of giving you all that other stuff I said before. Okay, now I'll stop rambling and get to what I'm supposed to be doing here. So, as we considered races and ethnicities, personal identities, and being a part of a multi-ethnic community, which is not such an easy thing to do as history has shown us. Obviously, along with that, we address the issue of racism. And as we looked at racism, we kind of talked about 3 states of racism. The first being active racism, which is kind of self-explanatory. You're like actively thinking and saying and acting on your racism. So you have racist thoughts, you say racist things, you have racist feelings, and you act towards other people in a racist way. And then there's like second state of being racism is passive racism, which is where you don't necessarily think those thoughts or have those attitudes or say those things or act in those ways, but you see other people doing it and you do nothing about it, and you just allow it. And maybe you feel like you should do something about it, but you don't. So passive racism is you're not actively racist yourself, but I mean it's kind of self-explanatory, but you're allowing other people to do it. And so if you're not doing anything about it, against it, then you're kind of just being as racist as the most racist person around you. And I say you, I'm included in this too, of course. The third state of racism is anti-racism, which is the opposite of racism, where you're actively against racism. So maybe you're like some of the passive people and you feel bad about what's going on around you and you say this is not right, but you do something about it. You seek change and you fight against the way things are. So kind of my journey dealing with racism that I kind of come to terms with over this week is that for a while I was an active racist. And I mean, I'll admit that before you. I had thoughts and feelings and ideas in my head that were actively racist. Now, just because I was an active racist doesn't mean I was an outward racist. I was inwardly an active racist. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I would never act in a racist way per se towards someone who is not white or some, whatever, however you define racism. But I wouldn't necessarily, throw around racial slurs or show preferential treatment or anything like that towards people who were white. But I definitely had thoughts and feelings and sentiments that were racist. But over the past few years, that's become less and less of the case for me. Not to say I've never had a racist thought in the past few years. And this is kind of a continuum of an experience for me. So it's not like one day I'm not racist anymore. No, but just my composite interactions and teachings and just things like that have helped me to realize that that's really not okay. That's really not what I want to be. And so over the past few years, kind of my racist thoughts and things like that have kind of diminished. And I've become more of a passive racist. And this trip helped me to realize that even just being passive racist is not okay. That allowing people around me to be racist um, is not okay. And that's something that I want to change about myself, that I am changing about myself, is that I'm not going to allow that anymore. And I've come to a point where I don't allow that within myself. Even if I have a racist thought, I think, no, that's not right. So now I want to be outwardly anti-racist and not just inwardly, passively anti-racist. Um, so yeah, that's my journey with racism that I've come to terms with, and then I realized that um, God created every skin color, and God created every culture. God created white culture, he created Asian culture, he created Latino culture, he created African American culture, and because he created them, they are good, they are what he wants. um, and so for me to say, like, the reason you drive that way, the reason you think that way is because you're insert ethnicity here, like the reason you said that is because of your ethnicity, that's not, no, that's not pleasing to God, because God created their ethnicity. So yeah, racism is not going to fly around me anymore. Um, Now, another thing, oh, that's also my challenge to you, is to consider your status on the continuum of racism. Are you actively, passively, or anti-racist? And sorry, my computer went to sleep again. And if what do you want to be? What are you, and what do you want to be? So just consider those things, please. Um, Also, what does God want you to be, even more importantly than what you want to be? So consider those things. Okay, I'm done with racism. Next point is developing. They really encouraged us to develop friendships with people who aren't white as we explore multi-ethnicity and diversity. They're saying a great way that you can contribute to diversity is to become friends with people who are something other than your ethnicity. And I thought, oh wow, that's something great, I should do that. But then I thought, well, at Emory it's not really hard, because like you're living, breathing, eating, going to classes with people who are not white. Like my roommate is Korean, my best friend at Emory is Japanese, next door to me is a Sri Lankan, they're African Americans, um, white people. So it's like, it's not very hard at Emory to have close relationships, because I have very close relationships with people who are not white. And it's amazing. I just want you to know that it's great to be a part of a multi-ethnic community. But I want to encourage you to pursue that, just to consider, like, oh, all of my friends are white. Maybe I should branch out a little bit. I'm not saying like, oh, I want to be friends with a black person just because I can have a black friend. No. And don't see this as like a project, but just as like, branch out and take opportunities that are given to you, and don't shy away from things because of your fears or anxieties. Branch out and become part of a multi-ethnic community. Um, Also, something that I considered before I talked about North Charleston and how it's very similar to the Austin community, um, as far as the privileged and the unprivileged, or the disadvantaged, whatever you want to call it. And it just made me consider like what kind of things I can do at home, in my own community of where I was raised. And it just kind of sparked me to think about the history of Charleston, specifically North Charleston, the racial history, and what I can do, ways I can figure out about that, and ways that I can see how things, like how people are pursuing change in Charleston, which I'm definitely going to do when I get back. And also to consider ways that the church in general, but specifically Northwood Baptist Church, can address these issues. Like, I don't know, just personally, ways I'm thinking of that we can change to contribute to a multi-ethnic community, and to fight against social and racial injustice in our own community. And also, I have like 20 seconds before this thing's going to cut off again. But um, God's kind of put a lot of things on the table for me as far as where he wants me to go career-wise. And through this trip, he kind of put another thing on the table for me. So I'm not making any commitments, but I'm just saying that things that God has given me a lot of things to consider